So, with this fear of internal enemies and, of course, external enemies from the war, there's a very strong rise in counter revolutionary protective measures. And this is a term that's going to be coming up again, counter revolutionary. Basically, when the government creates a specific force to deal with individuals who might be sabotaging the revolution. We're going to see this during the Communist Revolution of Russia. We're going to see this in China and Cambodia, etc. Now, this rise or this urgency against these measures is coming from the Jacobin Party. The Jacobin Party is very, very left wing, and they're able to gain control of government because of how much they're playing on the people's fear, saying, we're going to look after the revolution, we're going to make sure all these enemies of France are destroyed. So they're a major encouragement to the army of France, who's out there fighting against Austria. They're also pushing nationalism in society for France. So you're no longer Lombardy, you're no longer Norman, you're definitely French, and you're doing all of this for the state. So now you're not just saying, hello, sir, hello, madame. You're saying, hello, citizen, hello, citizeness. Again, sort of affirming that equality. Now, definitely one of the largest and probably most deadly legacies of the French Revolution comes from the Jacobin Party of Maximilien Robespierre, and this is known as the Committee of Public Safety. The Committee of Public Safety is basically a committee that's supposed to deal with these enemies either in and outside of France. And what the committee does is they are looking out for any individuals who might be speaking out against the revolution. There are spies all throughout Paris, all throughout France. And so individuals are brought in on whatever charges you can think of, if they are aristocratic. Now, this is a period in which all the aristocracy are seen as enemies. The Jacobins are also very, very humanists. They are very much against the Catholic religion, so priests are brought in. Individuals of the bourgeoisie who might not want the revolution to be going quite this far left, they might be brought in. So it's actually very easy for you to bring in anyone and be put forth before the committee, and that the reason for them being there, and they're not going to get a fair trial. So it's actually a very easy way, like the Salem witch trials, in which girls were using terror and panic, and neighbors were spying on neighbors and selling people out. And so this is what inspires the Reign of Terror, because, of course, the only way to deal with all these enemies of the state say, well, we're not going to just put you in prison, we're going to publicly execute you. And public executions were a major attraction throughout all of Europe. It was almost like a picnic atmosphere. This is it's a unifying force. You're bringing this prisoner out, you're reading this list of his charges, and you're saying, this is how he's different, this is how he's an enemy of the state, and you execute him. And so thousands of individuals are executed, and the guillotine is going day after day after day after day. And the crowds never stop. So it's an incredibly bloody, incredibly awful look at this particular period, and how fear in this one political party, while they certainly did keep the revolution going and the French Republic going, they were doing it at an enormous cost to the welfare, with hundreds of thousands imprisoned and executed. Now, support for the terror is eventually going to fall as France appears more secure. And eventually the terror is going to turn against its own orchestrators, like Robespierre, who is going to be also brought on trial and then executed. But France at this time has gone through a number of different constitutions, and none of them have quite worked. So after the Reign of Terror, the revolution is coming a little bit more centrist and saying, okay, that was a terrible period, we shouldn't have done that, let's try and have a little bit more stability. So the next government they try is the Directory. They're trying to shy away from this idea of one individual having absolute power like Robespierre, And the Directory has 5 representatives, and they're all supposed to work together in the executive branch. Well, the Directory is just as corrupt as any particular government within France. And so they're thinking, okay, we have to get someone in here that the public is really going to support. And this is the introduction of Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, Napoleon has a great deal of support in France itself because he's such a major military hero. He has been in Egypt fighting against England and France's rights in Egypt. He fought against Austria. He fought against Prussia. He has these wonderful military victories. And so he's a war hero for the French people. They very much love him. What we're looking at in Napoleon's introduction to the Directory is he's going to totally change the nature of the French Revolution. And so this is a question you're going to be grappling with for this particular section. Is Napoleon a child of the French Revolution? Does he support the ideals of the Revolution? Or is he an antithesis of it? Is he a conqueror, or is he a reformer? And you have to consider his global connections also, along with his personal rule and his international policy. So who is he? First, the basic is that he is a member of the nobility. Enormous intellect, enormous desire for action. And again, very skilled military commander, very charismatic. And so there's a lot of support by France for him because of his military career. He's brought in specifically to the Directory to help restore order. And there's this understanding by the individuals who bring him in that, okay, he will be able to control him. He's young, he definitely can run an army, but does that mean he can run a country? We're not going to worry about it too much. And what they don't realize is how far-reaching Napoleon's intellect really is. And he is, for the most part, very much driven by power. So he's invited in to help restore order. They figure, okay, we can keep a handle on him. But he very quickly overwhelms the government and elects himself first consul, very much echoing back the old Roman Empire. And he's soon going to actually end up crowning himself emperor, which you would think would be, again, the absolute antithesis of what's going on for the revolution. And yet there's a lot he does to actually create order and stability in France. First of all, France now has a very contentious relationship with the Catholic Church and the Church in Rome because of that persecution of the First Estate, because of almost the annihilation of a lot of members of the clergy. And so in 1801, he signs a Condorcet with the Pope. And basically, this is what's known as a reconciliation with the Catholic Church. What Napoleon says is, okay, look, to the Pope, we have these other religions in France. It's going to be too difficult for me to eradicate them, and that's going to upset stability in France. So I'm going to recognize the Protestants. I'm going to recognize the Jews. I'm going to recognize these other faiths. But France is definitely a majority Catholic country. And while we're not going to adopt Catholicism as the official state religion, we will have a special relationship with you. And we are going to try and repair our relationship with the Catholic clergy in France. So he's getting a nod of approval from the Pope. It's a bit of a nod of approval from other Catholic nations in Europe. And he's also going to be winning the support of the French population, who still has very strong ties to Catholicism. And then there's going to be other things he does to establish order. One, of course, is his administration and his law code. Now, the thing about France is they had no one uniform law code.